Hey guys, so I got a fun talking point here, and I'm just hearing about this now, so I want to try to just get my thoughts out there before it's like 2 years down the road. And this one's an interesting one because I'm starting to hear it around a lot more, especially on my comments section and in the YouTube world about this whole, is it's like walking off is safer than rappelling down. And I think the idea got it got out there because of Andy Kirkpatrick in his book Down. I have that book actually. I like looking at it a lot. He really did all this research in it. I mean, to write a book this, like 2 centimeters thick on rappelling is inspiring. And I gotta, give him his credit that I think it's a very inclusive and has everything book, There's even canyoneering and caving and stuff like that in there. So he did his research for sure. I guess he has this line in the preface about, rappelling down should be treated as a last resort. If you have the power to walk down, then you should walk down. And I think I personally just don't agree with that. Not a huge amount. And it's nothing against Andy for sure, but I think it's a wrong mindset to take towards something like how you descend off the mountain. And maybe that's because, when I started climbing, I was climbing in Washington. And if you're not in the Alpine Washington, many of the rock routes, the only choice is to rappel right back down. So I guess that fits in line with the saying. It is your only option to go down is by rappelling. Walking off can be safer if it's like a second class easy walk off. Think like when you climb like Moonlight Buttress at Zion, and then all you do is walk down the Angels Landing Trail. It's way safer to just walk down the trail versus rappelling, especially if you have like a haul bag and stuff. And so it holds weight for sure. And I guess a lot of people also have the idea that rappelling is the most dangerous part of climbing, which I guess also makes sense. It's true, you don't have any sort of backup, but the forces that you're putting on the equipment are so low. You're spreading out your weight over 2 strands of rope most of the time. Whereas when you're sport climbing, you take these monster like 10 or 20 foot whippers on 1 strand of rope, and you're multiplying your body weight by so many times. Yeah, rappelling has no redundancy, but sport climbing has no redundancy. I don't also subscribe to that idea of rappelling being the most dangerous part of climbing. And then you have the other stat, right? Like most climbing accidents happen on the way down. That is also true. I mean, I'm not going to argue with statistics there. Of course, every situation is different in how the accident started, and it could involve leading up to that, like descending wasn't the only issue in that whole setup there. It's a blanket statement, and whenever you add these blanket statements into the world of climbing or a dynamic world like the mountains, they just, they don't hold up over massive scrutiny. And so there have been plenty of times where I have chosen to rappel off of something rather than do the walk off because rappelling was the safer option. And that could be as simple as on a single pitch crag, if you have to do some crazy scramble over like dirt or moss or just like, choss, versus just rappelling off of the 2 bolts at the top. It's kind of a no-brainer at that point. Why would you actually do a dangerous scramble over loose stuff to get back down to the base versus just rappelling down? It's not that walking off is not safer in that situation. And there have been plenty of times where it's just not as safe, especially talking in the world of guiding, especially alpine guiding, like a lot of what I do. We have to do belayed down climbs, and we have to do like these counterbalance style rappels, and we depend on that rope for security a lot going down this more high intensity, high consequence terrain. And if we put that walking off part into the context of a rock climb, Would you rather rappel 12 pitches versus doing some crazy down scrambling where the person themselves may not be, or you yourself may not be totally comfortable going down that stuff without doing a whole lot of trickery. And then if you're dealing with a whole lot of trickery, you're out there longer, and then you also have to find your way out, and you're in the dark when all you had to do was just rappel the same route. There are other reasons why rappelling would be worse than walking off, like if the route doesn't actually have a rappel route. That could be a huge issue if you have to rappel, especially in an emergency situation. You can just make arguments from either side. And so that's why I don't think this whole like walking off is always safer than rappelling, it just doesn't add up. And you know, the more you think about it and the more different areas you climb, really it just doesn't work. And you have to be willing to rappel. I think maybe that's my big issue with it, is I'm worried some people are gonna like treat that as a law, and then they aren't even gonna attempt to rappel when it makes the most sense, or they're not gonna like think the whole thing through and get themselves into some trouble. Anytime you have a rule like that, and so many more people are saying it, and I'm just worried that, you know, some less experienced folks are gonna treat it as the gospel and say that that's the only way how you can do things. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Thanks for watching another Talking Point. I'll see you guys in the next one. So for anyone who has any aspirations to climb Mount Constance, get ready for a lot of this. It kind of makes up on speed on the way down.